Crypto Kids, welcome back to another video. Ladies and gents, this video is going to be absolutely awesome because we're going to be jumping into the Bitcoin price and discussing where it could potentially head next. Now, on top of this, Bitcoin is piling up $12 billion worth of liquidation leverage at a particular price point. And if Bitcoin corrects to that area, we may be seeing a huge inflection in price. Now, on top of that, we have a lot of breaking news, but most importantly, the European Central Bank this morning was literally dashing Bitcoin into pieces. And that's why I created this article, which took me basically the entire day to prepare. But we'll be going through some super important points that are raised in the ECB's articles and what my critique is on that. It will make sense when I get to it. Just watch until the end and trust me, you won't regret it. Most importantly, though, tomorrow we have a meetup with Da Vinci, Carl, and Mr. M. So if you're in Dubai and you're free tomorrow morning, check out meetup.davincij15.com. I'll leave a link in the description and you can get your free ticket to join the small conference. I started crypto by going to Da Vinci's meetups, and it's super emotional for me actually, because I went from being a fan to now speaking with him. And it's crazy. But yeah, if you're around, I would definitely recommend joining. And finally, ladies and gents, this video is sponsored by a crypto game. And I will get to that because the gameplay is actually pretty addicting. But let's jump over into the price action first, discuss some technical analysis, and then we'll get into all of the exciting stuff. Now, in terms of TA, not much has happened. Bitcoin corrected all the way down to $50,700. I mentioned in the previous one, so just a very quick recap, that if Bitcoin tests back to this trend line, it's going to be very critical. Now, if Bitcoin tests back and with volume we continue to rise, then there's a potential that we create a double top on the daily time frame, and that would take us back to 52.2K, or we correct lower and head towards the 46.9K area. Now, what we still have going on is this bearish divergence, and it looks like it's probably going to start to play out. If Bitcoin just dips below and closes the candle in the red here with bearish volume, then we could be expecting Bitcoin to come down to initially 48.8K, and then if that doesn't hold, 46.9K. At this point, Bitcoin would be breaking down from this rising wedge. I know we broke above it, but it could be considered as a fake out if we jump into the weekly time frame. And at that point, we will be reevaluating. In terms of my trade, I'm keeping the trade open. We entered that trade at 43.3K. Following the breakout of the bullish pennant and the inverse head and shoulders pattern. So congrats if you're still in that. It's in huge profits, although it's like with very low leverage. But that reminds me, if you would like to be trading Bitcoin, accumulating Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, you can check out the description below to sign up to Bitflex and get up to $68,888 in rewards. And you can watch the video below it to learn how to trade and, of course, actually claim those 68K in rewards. So check that out. But yeah, Bitcoin can see a short-term correction, but in the very macro, I am super bullish. We'll jump into the on-chain data suggesting what happens coming up towards the halving. Miners are selling at the moment, which is normal. But again, after the halving occurs, we should be, according to technical analysis, going in a parabolic uptrend. Now, Bitcoin is testing this resistance line that was holding since 2015. So it's played as crucial support and crucial resistance in the past couple of months. If Bitcoin gets rejected from here again, not going to be the greatest. But if we make it above, then in my opinion, all-time highs are pretty much guaranteed very soon. And yes, we do have the bearish divergence in play on the weekly time frame as well. So if Bitcoin drops below the 3-period moving average, which is a part of the Consensio trading system, then on the weekly time frame, Bitcoin can come down to the 7-period moving average, which is sitting at 45.49K. Interestingly enough, WorldCoin, which you guys know my thoughts on, so I'm not going to bore you with it, apparently a lot of people want to get their eyeballs scanned for some reason, and that's why WorldCoin is pumped from like $2 all the way to $8, and God knows why this is happening. And Uniswap went from $8 or $6.9 all the way to $12.6 just like a couple of hours ago. So it looks like the altcoin season may have started. Ethereum is pumping. It's going exactly as we put the chart out. So massive congrats again. We bought Ethereum between 2.1 to 2.2K, and now it went to actually $3,000, over $3,000. So it looks like capital is flowing from Bitcoin to Ethereum. The hype here is mostly about the Denkun upgrade and the Ethereum spot ETF. Some good news there too, but it looks like now altcoins are seeing some traction, and this is nothing yet. When the real altcoin season starts after the halving, that's when stupendous gains are going to be made. But that covers my analysis for Bitcoin and Ethereum and a couple of altcoins. Going into the breaking news, I want to first of all cover some of the on-chain data, then I will go into the ECB stuff. So going here, we can see that a lot of miners are actually selling their Bitcoin in OTC. This includes whale data as well. But we tend to see this prior to the halving. Look, a lot of miners, especially a lot of retail miners, are going to become unprofitable after this halving cycle, and mining is going to switch to sovereign funds where, energy is a lot less costly to own compared to the retail to the retail miner. So it's expected that 20% of the hash rate is going to be dropping after the halving, and a lot of people will be taking profit. I mean, their realized returns aren't looking too bad. So it's something to be looking out for. This is crazy interesting. I'll get into it. We can see that Ethereum is now outperforming Bitcoin by 10 percentage points, showcasing a potential altcoin season starting. In terms of, again, on-chain data, if you hold Bitcoin, if you buy Bitcoin at the top, like $69,000, but hold it for 4 years, your annualized returns do not drop below 30%, according to Willy Woo. So that's why DCAing, of course, not financial advice, but DCAing, in my perspective and experience, is the best way to be going into Bitcoin. But that covers the quick on-chain TA on the 3-day chart. Bitcoin is forming a TD sequential top. You can see in all of the previous tops, Bitcoin corrected by first 10.5%, then 10.1%, and it is possible that Bitcoin corrects here by 10.1% too. Okay, that covers the on-chain. And going into the ECB news, so the European Central Bank announces that Bitcoin fair value is still zero, and just a bunch more outrageous things. Now, going over into my article, the 3 most important key takeaways from this, you can read the full articles yourself. I'm sure you can go ahead into Twitter and find out. But basically, the European Central Bank criticized Bitcoin for its environmental impacts, its slow transactions and costly transactions, and its environmental damage. Did I mention that? I probably did. But going over, we can see that once we compare Bitcoin to the traditional monetary system, let's say I went to Apple to purchase an iPhone worth $1,000, okay? And I pay with my Visa credit card or my MasterCard. Basically, for money to go from my account to the merchant's account, it being Apple in this situation, it takes between 1 to 3 business days, sometimes even more. And on top of that, the device you see here, which you tap your credit card on, it takes about a 1.5 to 3.5% cut. Now, that's not ideal, right? And when you use Bitcoin, well, the transaction takes 10 minutes maximum if you're paying the max fee, actually, which is less than $1. And there is no centralized intermediary that stops this process from happening and taking like days to actually go through. So it goes through in 10 minutes. It costs less than $1. And that transaction fee stays the same regardless of the total amount. So it could be a $100 billion transaction, but the fee will still be $1. So clearly a false statement there. And what happens is by speeding up transactions across the world or in a country, you're simultaneously increasing the GDP and therefore economic growth of that given place, because GDP also measures velocity of transactions. And if you increase the speed of which transactions take place, then you're increasing economic growth. That's why a lot of third world countries and hyperinflationary countries will soon use Bitcoin, because it is definitely a no-brainer. And the second point is the energy standpoint and environmental concern. According to the European Central Bank, Bitcoin uses up too much energy and contributes to global warming. However, there's 2 arguments against this. Number 1 is that if you compare the current financial system and the amount of energy the current financial system drains from all the operations and the running costs of banks and lighting up and networks and utility bills, etc., and people commuting to the office and going back and whatever, ATMs, all of this energy cumulatively built up is nothing. Well, actually, the Bitcoin energy consumption is nothing compared to this. So, of course, they're not going to mention that because Bitcoin is a direct competitor to banks. Bitcoin is a direct competitor to the European Central Bank because they'll be launching a CBDC soon. So none of that they will mention. And secondly, Bitcoin actually provides the opportunity of reducing the total methane gas in the air, which is 84, which composes 10% of the greenhouse gases and is 84% more potent than carbon dioxide in the short term. So Bitcoin mining can actually transfer methane gas into carbon dioxide gas. Don't ask me how that works, not sure, but according to Forbes, it does. So again, another subjective or falsified agreement. And funnily enough, when you compare Bitcoin against the euro, well, the euro's lost 99% of its value against Bitcoin, which is crazy. But I would definitely recommend going to this tweet here. I'll post the link for the article below as well. Basically, the ECB got a community notes on Twitter, which is super, super funny and super ironic. But anyways, I hope that covers it. I thought it was super interesting. And what's also interesting is what Michael Saylor posted here, because we see a comparison of different currencies measured against Bitcoin. And in countries like Japan, Laos, Lebanon, Turkey, Egypt, Bitcoin is already hitting all-time highs. So when I say Bitcoin may potentially drop or may potentially increase, we're measuring it against the United States dollar. However, if I were to measure it against all of these currencies, then Bitcoin is already at all-time highs. That's why it's super subjective on the analysis we make on Bitcoin and which currency we compare it to, because eventually one Bitcoin will equal one Bitcoin. And other goods and services around the world will be measured against Bitcoin, because Bitcoin will be, in my opinion, the reserve currency of the world. And we'll purchase things with Satoshis and save in Bitcoin. That's what I think will happen. And we can see a clear demonstration of that. Going back to the point that I made about increasing economic growth, all of these countries will definitely see a positive impact, positive externalities if they use Bitcoin now as a medium of transaction instead of their own. Because, for example, in Venezuela, right, what used to happen was when you wanted to purchase something, let's say a loaf of bread, you would have to carry, stacks and stacks of cash. And because it was super inconvenient for them to count every single note that there was, they would have to measure the height of the stack and then give a justified estimation of approximately how much that would be worth. So to prevent something like that from happening, in my perspective, I think Bitcoin is the perfect option. I'll be releasing a full video talking about the pros and cons of using Bitcoin. It's super nice. I just recorded it today, and it goes into a lot of detail, super transparent, and just filled with knowledge. Stay tuned for that. I'll probably post it this Sunday. But if we go into the Bitcoin cycle, we're currently 58 days away until the halving. And what happens is Bitcoin tends to see a correction 58 days before the halving in the previous cycles. So we may have started that correction. Again, 10-15% drop happens with Bitcoin. It's nothing huge. And if it does, personally, I think it's a good time to be accumulating and adding more to our assets. Going over quickly and switching into the ETFs. No, we'll wait, because we'll get to the ETFs in just a second. Coinbase is lobbying against the SEC. They created like a 27-page document which describes why Ethereum should be having a spot ETF. Now, you can go and find it on Twitter, but I'm not going to go through the entire 27 pages, rather give you the gist of it. It talks about reasons why Ethereum should have a spot ETF. But clearly, Coinbase is a bit subjective here, and they're lobbying for this because they're making so much money from custodian fees with the Bitcoin spot ETFs. Look, there's $30 billion worth of assets under management, and so many of that capital is stored on Coinbase, and they make 0.1% of that annually. That is tremendous sums of money. So if the Ethereum spot ETFs are approved, they will also be custodians for the Ethereum spot ETF too, meaning they'll be making more money. So this investment for lobbyists, well, it's clearly a good choice, and that's what I'll leave it at. We had the Fed meeting minutes, and it looks like the interest rates won't go higher, but it won't also decrease in any time near the future, because they think it's still dangerous, and we need to reach that 2% inflation target. More lobbying against Ethereum spot ETF. That's the news there. But look, we saw this weird, crazy 14 times jump on the HODL ETF because there were new algorithmic trading bots introduced to HODL. So even though we had like a 14x jump in total volume traded, unfortunately, the ETF saw the first negative flows in I think it was like 26 days, multiple weeks at least. We had a negative $35 million outflow, unfortunately, but thankfully yesterday we saw another $251 million increase. If we also had negative flows today, Bitcoin would have been crashing further. So yesterday pretty much saved us, yesterday's data. But let's see what happens here. It's interesting that we saw actually outflows happening with the ETFs overall. I find that super interesting, but I think Bitcoin held up pretty well. We'll talk more about that in the next video. Now, more importantly, President Donald Trump, he talks about Bitcoin and the United States dollar. Over here, he's asked about what he thinks about Bitcoin, and he says that he doesn't mind it. Now, in my personal opinion, I think this is just a political approach. So he's trying to get votes. Of course, we're coming very close to the elections. So him saying that he doesn't mind Bitcoin will ultimately get him more votes, and those votes may just be the decider on who wins. So I think it's a political move, but still pretty cool regardless. This is crazy because currently there's $607 million worth of Bitcoin being demanded per day. This includes the retail investors, the institutional investors, and the ETFs at the same time. So $607 million worth of Bitcoin demanded per day, but only 46 million added to the supply. That's crazy. That's like multiple tens of X's, actually like around 13, 14X compared to what is being released and what is being demanded. Now we're only 60 days away or 57 days away from the halving. When the halving happens, this will be cut from $46 million to $23 million per day. And just based off of that, based off of fundamental economics, the price of Bitcoin should rally much higher. NVIDIA added $277 billion to its market cap within one day. This has not happened ever in history. And we can see here that NVIDIA is right now just under Saudi Aramco in terms of market capitalization. And if it passes it, it's going to be historic. NVIDIA is increasing because of their huge earnings report. I think they got $22 billion, and last year they were at like $8 billion. They're supplying the chips for AI, quantum computing, etc. So NVIDIA is doing pretty well, not too shabby, and it's single-handedly causing the stock market to continue increasing and reach new all-time highs. Reddit turns out that they hold Bitcoin and Matic now. It was revealed in their S1 filings, and that's pretty much it. And this is the community note on their tweet, which is super funny. Capo is bearish, but I'll end that off there. I'll just add that there's basically a huge opportunity to provide banking services to the unbanked. There's currently $380 billion worth of opportunity and 1.4 billion people around the world who are unbanked. And with Bitcoin, we can solve this problem and increase economic growth and distribute wealth to more people out there. And I think that's why Bitcoin is very important. But let's switch over to the sponsor of this video. The game is called My Lovely Planet, and it is actually super addicting. So you can check out all the details in the description below. But personally, I've already found this game addicting. I'm on level 3, and it's like Candy Crush style. So you have to complete these levels, and you earn resources in exchange, just like medieval empires, and then you get to build your town. And they're very ESG compliant. Definitely check them out. Super interesting project, but yeah, pretty cool. You can download it on Mac, iOS, etc., and Android. But I don't want to bore you with the gameplay too much. It's just super addicting, and I'll probably continue playing after I post the video. But yeah, you get the gist of it. So thank you so much for sponsoring the video. You guys are awesome for that. But guys and girls, thank you so much for watching. The previous take of this video actually was 25 minutes long, so I wanted to refilm it because clearly it was too much. But guys and girls, thank you so much for watching. Have a beautiful day, everyone, and I will see you all in the next video very soon. Take care, guys, and bye-bye.